Welcome back to Connect, Elder to Elder Conversations. And today we talk about elder health. Elder health, the first of 3 consecutive podcasts.
Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey, welcome to Connect, Elder to Elder Conversations. And once again, we thank CDF Capital for their great investment in elders, not only across the country, but around the world. They are a strategic partner of E2 Effective Elders. And today, I want to introduce to you an elder of one of our partner churches. This is Pete Brown. Yeah. Pete, welcome to the podcast.
Everybody. Thanks for having me, Gary. Good to be back.
It's great. And Pete is not only an elder at Ben Davis Christian Church on the west side of Indianapolis, he is also the founder of Ash Interactive. And Ash Interactive is a marketing firm, and they have been a huge partner with E2 in these recent years, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, we are too.
Yep.
Thank you.
And what we're going to be doing a little bit here is changing up the role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we get to hear from Gary all the time are all these just awesome nuggets and streams of wisdom, but he's often asking us the question. So we're going to flip it around for this 3-part podcast where we're going to talk about the thing that we see on this battery, which is a triple A, AAA. We're going to be covering the 3 A's of
elder health.
Elder health. And today we're starting with the word assess and assessment, and kind of the idea of how are we checking ourselves as elders. There's so many different components that fall into assessment. There's different types of assessment.
Right.
Everything from, again, the morning you wake up and, man, your back might feel a little weird, so you have physical assessment. If you're stressed out about work or something that's coming up at home, maybe you have a mental or emotional assessment to do on yourself, but there's also spiritual assessment.
Right.
So how do we dive into that as elders, kind of reflecting on ourselves? And I guess the secondary part in my mind too is how do we help with our teammates, the other men that we're serving with in that role?
That's a good question. So what we want to understand is that in this first of 3, triple A, the word assess, we really exist in 4 key areas of life. If you look at Mark chapter 12, verse 30, that's where Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, with all of your strength. In other words, love the Lord your God with every part of your being. And it's just a natural part of our DNA, rhythm of life that we assess. Just like you said a moment ago, Pete, you wake up, man, does my back hurt? Am I running a fever? We assess mentally, is something going on at work? I'm confused. What's going on in the marriage? We assess. We ought to be able to do that spiritually. Love the Lord your God with all of your soul, our interior world. We should be able to assess, particularly as elders, hey, what's going on within my interior world? It's a very important part, because if we cannot lead ourselves, how can we lead
anybody else?
Yeah,
right?
A business, Ash Interactive. How can you lead Ash Interactive if you can't lead yourself? How can I lead E2 elders if I'm not leading myself? How can we as elders, you're an elder at Ben Davis, I'm an elder at the Creek, how can we lead ministries if we are not leading ourselves? So elders need to be able to self-assess. Plato was known for saying the first and best victory is to conquer self. So we have to have a real sense of interior self-assessment.
Interesting. And so to pivot on that, are there any strategies that an elder can use individually to kind of, I mean, I'm kind of a checklist and a note guy, and I'm a sticky note guy. So what can I do strategically to make this an ongoing sort of assessment? Because I assume it's the kind of thing that you want to revisit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, a book that was a game changer for me some years ago is this book called 10 Questions to Diagnose Your Spiritual Health by Donald Whitney. I know you can still get it because I've been on Amazon and other book sites, and it's still available. As a matter of fact, I bought this and read this in 2005.
Okay.
And so it's a good 15, 16 years ago. I bought a whole box of these and gave them to other people. I can remember leading a group of guys on a mission trip. It was a 2-week mission trip. And we read this together while we were on the trip. And every day was one of the 10 questions.
Okay, cool.
Now, this book, as you can tell, is not very long. It's quite brief. And Don Whitney, he articulates each of these 10 questions in a very brief chapter, just a few pages long. It's very thought-provoking. And what I did, because when you ask the question, recurring, how do we self-assess?
Yeah.
I literally typed these 10 questions up on a card, laminated it, and this is what goes in my devotional journal.
Okay.
So every morning I have these questions, but I've read this so often, I know them in my mind.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, cool. Good strategy. What about as we are sort of meeting with others and people who could use some self-assessment? What are some ways to encourage them or some ways to walk alongside them, I guess?
Well, we're going to get into that in our third of these 3 podcasts. It's going to be that letter A for accountability. But to answer that, one thing is, I made this into an e-document. And many times I will share that through a text and email with somebody. You want to go down these 10 questions?
Let's do it.
Okay, all right. So, for example, question number 1, do I thirst for God? To what degree do we have an appetite or a thirst for the Lord? Second question, am I governed increasingly by His Word? So if I'm going to live under the authority of His Word, I have to know His Word. I got to be able to bring my life under its sovereignty. Number 3, am I more compassionate? We're living in a very complex, even chaotic time. Sometimes it's difficult to show compassion to people, but am I increasingly compassionate? Number 4, am I more sensitive to God's presence? There was a monk by the name of Brother Lawrence. I don't know if you know of a piece that he wrote many centuries ago, and it's called Practicing the Presence of God.
Okay.
And you can Google that and find it, and it's just a very simple piece that while we're driving the car, do we practice the presence of God? While we're mowing the lawn, do we practice the presence of God? Number 5, do I have a growing concern for others? Am I increasingly heartbroken for the needs of others? Number 6, do I delight in the church, the bride of Christ? As an elder, you probably, over the last 18 months with COVID, in 2020, and then coming out of COVID, probably saw some conflict between believers, mask, no mask. And sometimes it's hard to delight in the church. We saw people leaving their local church. Were they delighting in the church? So how I answer that question is going to be a reflection of how am I doing spiritually. Number 7, are the spiritual disciplines increasingly a part of my life? Do I fast? Do I pray? Do I worship? Do I give? Etc. Number 8, do I grieve sin in my life? Am I still heartbroken when I commit sin? Number 9, am I more prompt to forgive? Am I quick to forgive others when I'm offended? We live in a culture that's very easily offended.
Yeah.
And then finally, number 10, do I yearn for heaven and to be with Jesus? So I think that when we take time to look inwardly, ask ourselves some questions, it becomes a part of our rhythm of life.
Sure. Developing new habits, making it just part of when you wake up. Are these questions coming to mind, and are you reflecting on them even maybe before you get your day started? And hop in the shower or whatever. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yep. So as we're talking about these 10, they obviously are resonating. Each of the questions you just read hit me in a different way. Why is this sort of assessment so important?
Okay. That's a great question. So if I am not assessing where I am spiritually in my walk with the Lord, then I'm not going to be very healthy. I'm not going to be as strong as I can be in my walk with Christ. Well, if that's the case, then what about the rest of the elder team? Where are we as a band of brothers? Are we mediocre in our spirituality? Are we lukewarm in our walk with Christ? And if we are lukewarm, then what's that going to do in the leadership of the church?
Yeah.
So, why this is important, if I am always pressing the envelope and trying to become increasingly like Jesus, more today than I was yesterday, I might be a catalyst then to our band of brothers.
Sure.
And if you are a part of our fellow elder team, if we're in this together, we can, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another.
Yeah.
And that elder team becomes passionate for Jesus Christ. And then if that happens, we have every greater likelihood of leading the church to a place of phenomenal health.
Yeah.
And healthy things grow.
Yep. And what a time on this earth to recognize the fact that we need that growth, we need that encouragement, we need that
huge
unity right now. So.
Yes. We're living in very challenging days. So whether it is conflict in politics or ideology or all of the divisiveness that's happening sociologically in America, when we see people wanting less and less to do with Christianity.
Yeah.
These are some of the most challenging days that we have experienced. And I think that as elders, we need to be resilient. We need a strength. We need a fortitude that is anchored in our walk with Jesus. Because these days of disruption, they're not done.
Yeah.
What happened in 2020, that just, though it was so painfully intense, the painful intensity is not done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as men of God, as brothers in Christ, we need to be healthy, as strong as we can in our walk with Jesus.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully 2020, we all got the taste of something we didn't like, and hopefully that can help motivate us as a unified team to let's avoid as much of that as possible moving forward. And it starts with, again, the strong foundation and bringing everybody in and having that collective unified front for moving forward, I think.
So assessment, it all begins with assessment. If we go to the doctor, if we're not feeling well, we make that appointment with the doctor, we see the doctor, and he or she does a diagnosis. And it may be that we don't like the diagnosis.
Right.
But we have to do something about it. If we don't do anything about it, we continue in our lack of health.
Right.
So spiritually, do an assessment, and if we don't like where we are in our walk with Jesus, we have one of two decisions. Either stay in that place of unhealth or move into a place of increasing spiritual health.
Yeah, and I think these 10 questions are going to be a great place to start. You know, none of us, thankfully, are having to write this book as we go necessarily when it comes to your own self-assessment. So I think these questions are going to be a great thing to just get in the habit. Again, put it on my dashboard in the car while I'm driving into work. It gives me something to ponder.
So the first A of that AAA, we have to do an assessment of where we are with Jesus. And that will lead us into our next podcast on that second A. So if you're interested in what that is, join us in our next podcast. Thanks, Pete.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You bet.